Dear friends, today our topic of discussion is element of poetry. Elements of poetry make us acquainted with the elements involved in a poetry. A poem can be analyzed and dissected with the knowledge that we have of elements of poetry. Introduction. Poetry is an intricate literary form that incorporates rhyme, figurative language, sound devices, and meter in order to evoke a wide range of meanings. The language of poetry is not always straightforward. It guides readers to reach a conclusion but never gives out any details explicitly. Such is the beauty of a poetry on poetry text that demands readers' attentive and creative participation. With the knowledge of important poetry elements, we can understand poems' message and appreciate the text more effectively. The structure and form is the first element of poetry. Poetry comes in a variety of forms, and in each form follow a specific structure. For example, sonnet form containing a set structure is different from odes. A free verse poem does not have metrical regularity, which can be found in a blank verse. The structural elements found in poetry are: the first is stanza, a group of lines set off from the others by a blank line or indentation. Verse is the another structural element that is found in poetry. Verse are stanzas with no set number of lines that make up unique based on a sense. Canto is a stanza pattern found in a medieval and modern long poetry. The next element of poetry is form. Some of the important poetry forms include sonnet. Sonnet is a 14-line poem with a set rhyme scheme and often divided into quatrain, octaves, and sestes. Next is ode. Ode is a formal lyrical poem written in a celebration or a dedication of something with a special intent. Lyric is a personal piece of poetry that tends to be shorter and melodic and contemplative. The another form is elegy. Elegy is a mournful poem, especially a lament for the dead. Next form is Vinadel. Vinadel is a 19-line poem comprising of five triplets with a closing quatrain. Limerick is a humorous piece of poetry that consists of five lines with the same rhythm. Haiku is a form of unrhymed Japanese poetry containing three sections with 17 syllables arranged in a 5-7-5 pattern. Next element of poetry is meter. Meter is definitive pattern found in verse. Some of the important metrical feet in English poetry include iamb. Iamb means the iamb consists of one untraced syllable followed by a traced syllable, as in a despair word despair. It includes dis and spare. These are the two syllables. First is untraced and second is untraced. The next one is repeat. 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 Re is untraced and peat is traced syllable in this example. Next form of meter is trochee. Trochee is a metrical foot containing one traced syllable followed by untraced syllable. exactly opposite to am, as in a sister, sis and stir. Sis is trace syllable and ter is untrace syllable. Flower, flaw is trace syllable and is untrace syllable. Same is the case with the word splinter. Splint is trace syllable, ter is untrace syllable. Next form of meter is, or type of meter is dactyl. Dactyl comprises one trace syllable followed by two untraced syllables, as in the word similar. 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 C is traced, me and lar are untraced. Next type of meter is anapist. Anapist consists of three syllables where the first two are untraced and the last one is traced, as in the word comprehend. Comprehend. In this word, the first two syllables are untraced syllables and the last one is traced. Compre. These two are untraced syllables and hand is traced syllable. The next one is spondy. Spondy contains two trace syllables like in the word drum beat. Drum and beat. Both of them are trace syllables. The last type of meter is pyric. Pyric is opposite of spondy. It contains two untraced syllables. Next, poets utilize these metrical fits to create patterns. These metrical fits, when they are being used in a particular pattern, that is called as metrical pattern or metrical scheme. Some of the important metrical patterns include iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter occurs when the lines of poem contain 5 iambs each. Shakespeare's sonnet are written in this meter. Iambic tetrameter. Iambic tetrameter is another important metrical pattern. It occurs when the lines have 4 iambs, as in Robert Frost's poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Trochaic tetrameter is a recurring pattern of 4 trochaics per line. In the Song of Hiawatha by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, this metrical pattern called as trochaic tetrameter is found. The next one is trochaic octameter. It occurs when the verse line contain 8 trochees each, as they are being found in Edgar Allan Poe's best known poem The Raven. The Raven is written in this meter called as trochaic octameter. Next element of poetry is rhyme and rhyme scheme. Rhyme is a repetitive pattern of sounds found in poetry. They are used to reinforce a pattern or a rhyme scheme in specific poetry forms such as ballads, sonnets, couplets. Rhyme scheme is an important element. The common types of rhymes used in poetry are end rhyme. End rhyme is a common type of a rhyme in a poetry that occurs when the last line of two or more lines end with the same sound. Imperfect rhyme is a type of a rhyme that occurs in the words that do not have an identical sound. Next rhyme scheme is internal rhyme. Internal rhyme occurs in the middle of the lines in poetry. The next type is masculine rhyme. Masculine rhyme is rhyming between trace syllables at the end of verse lines. Feminine syllable, feminine rhyme is the rhyming between untraced syllable at the end of verse lines. Next element of poetry is sound and rhythm. Sound and rhythm are important elements of poetry. The sound of a poetic text means how a line or what sounds of specific words evoke in reader's mind. Rhythm is a set pattern that is formed by these sounds. In poetry, rhythm refers to metrical rhythm that involves the arrangement of syllable into repeating patterns called as feet. For example, the following lines from William Shakespeare's sonnet number 116 contain an iambic rhythm with few variation. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when it alteration finds or bends with the remover to remove. So this is a kind of a analysis that divides these lines of poetry, particularly William Shakespeare's sonnet number 116, into sound patterns uh, following the set rhythm pattern and the feet which are involved into it. Uh, this is what is the analysis of these lines on the basis of sound and rhythmic pattern, the rhythmic feats that it has followed. The next element of poetry is subject. Subject or content of poetry differs across a variety of forms. A subject is what is the poem about. Subject means what is the poem about. For instance, the subjects of sonnet include love and admiration for one's beloved, heartache and separation. In most of the sonnets, we do find the main subject of the sonnets are love and admiration of one's beloved, heartache and separation. Whereas in divine sonnets, the subjects of devotions to God, enlightenment, and salvations are being found as the subjects of those sonnets. Elegies are written in a memory of someone who is no more, and therefore the subject of these poems is a dead person or the memories associated with the dead person. Next element of poetry is speaker. Speaker is one who narrates the poem. When we read a poem, we find that somebody is uh, talking to us, or somebody is addressing others, or somebody is talking with oneself. That somebody is a speaker, one who narrates poem. In a poetry, we tend to find that the poet is a speaker himself most of the time. However, it is not always the case. Sometimes poets assumes an imaginary character and write the poem from their perspective. At that time, the speaker of the poem is not the poet himself or herself. Generally, the poem is told from the perspective of first person speaker or third person speaker. Poet also Poets also use the second person point of view in order to communicate directly with the readers. Whenever the poets need to communicate directly with the readers, they use the second person's perspective or point of view. Understanding the speaker helps us to know the poem's tone and mood, and that is why it is necessary to understand the speaker. Otherwise, one is not able to get what is the poem's tone and what is the mood. The next element of poetry is theme. It is the most important element of poetry. Theme means a recurring idea or pervading thought in a work of literature. Poetry themes include some common ideas such as love, nature, beauty, and as complex as death, spirituality, and immortality. An understanding of the theme helps readers to identify the core message of the poem or the poet's purpose for writing the poem. For example, the following lines of Robert Burns, A Red Red Rose, exemplify the theme as well as the underlying message of the entire poem. My love is like a red, red rose that is newly sprung in June. My love is like sweet melody that is sweetly played in tune. So, this is how in this poem the poet Robert Burns is talking about his love that he has for his beloved, and that makes us clear that the theme of the poem is love. This piece is written in admiration of the poet's or the speaker's beloved. Therefore, the main theme of the poem are beauty, love, and admiration. Next element of poetry is tone and mood. Diction is another significant aspect of poetry. It refers to the language, sound, and form used in a particular piece of poetry. Tone or attitude of a poem speaker in the mood of the entire text is a part of poetic diction. To understand the speaker's attitude or tone to the subject, readers have to look for poets' choices of words and figurative language and sound devices. Choices of words, figurative language, and sound devices make us to understand what is the tone of a poem and what is the mood of a poem. Mood is related to impression of the text upon a reader. What the text of a poem makes an impression, whether it makes readers happy, whether it makes reader serious, whether it makes reader can say to contemplate. This effect of a poem is called as mood. When we explore these lines from Keats' Ode to Nightingale, we understand what kind of a can say tone and mood of a poem can be. Let us see the example. My heart acts, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of a hemlock I had drunk, or empty some of opiate to drains. 1 minute passed, and Lethe had sung. It is not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of Bishan green and shadow numberless, singest of summer in full thought case. These are the lines from Ode to Nightingale. These lines describe the Nightingale songs in elevated language. It makes us to understand that as and how the speaker, one who is feeling a can say heart attack at his heart in his heart, he has consumed a kind of a drink for the intoxication, and the tone of this particular song or a poem is emotive, pleasant, elated. The poem, the mood of the poem is happy and positive. The next element of poetry is syntax. Syntax is ordering of words into meaningful patterns. Poetry has a distinct syntax compared to prose, fiction, or other forms of literature. Poets manipulate conventional syntax to emphasize specific words. Purpose of adopting specific syntax is to achieve certain artistic effects such as tone, mood, etc. For example, in Dickens's A Narrow Furrow in the Grass, the speaker describes her surprise and amusement upon the discovery of a snake. To convey her feelings, Dickinson uses a specific syntax. A narrow fellow in the grass occasionally writes, "You may have met him. Did you not notice his sudden? Did you not notice? Did you not his notice is sudden?" Dear friends, now let us see in a nutshell how these elements of poetry are related to each other. The first element of poetry is structure and form. Structure means transic structure or linear structure means the lines of poems which are being divided into particular combination is called as a structure. And structure is something that makes us to reckon what is the form of a poem. For example, when we read 14 line poems, we come to know that it could most probably or it is a sonnet, because 14 lines poems is most probably is being found in a form of a sonnet. In the same way, we find that if a poem is in a form of or in a can say a particular structure, that it is in a form of a celebration or can say dedication, and it is in form of address, uh, it is ode. Then this is how the can say form of poetry makes us to understand what could be the subtype of a poem. If the poem is a shorter, contemplative, and melodic, can say piece, then it is lyric. This is how we understand. When a poem is a mournful and it is in a form of a lament for the dead, we could easily identify that it is an elegy. When a poem is written into 19 lines, that 19 line structure makes us to understand that poem is in a form of a villanelle. When a poem is written in a can say in a humorous way, and if it consists of 5 lines with the same rhythm, then we identify that the form of a poem is limerick. And if a poem is written in a unrhymed can say unrhymed structure of a 17 syllables in a particular line, in each line, that is with a pattern of a 575, then we easily understand the poem is in a form of haiku. The next element that is also can say related to all these elements called as structure, form, and that is meter. Meter is a definite can say sound pattern that is being used by the poet with the help of traced and untraced syllables. Certain combinations are being used by the poet. For example, in I am, untraced syllable is followed by traced syllables. In case of trochee, uh, one traced syllable is followed by an untraced syllable. In dactyl, one traced syllable is followed by two untraced syllables. In anapis, one untraced syllable is followed by the can say two untraced syllables are followed by one traced syllable. In a spondy, two traced syllables are found. In pyric, two untraced syllables are being found. So this is how meter is also a kind of a sound pattern that also tries to make us understand what could be in the form of poetry. For example, if certain combinations are being seen, uh, for example, iambic pentameter. In most of these experience sonnets, iambic pentameter is being used. When we find that a poem is in an iambic pentameter metrical feet or metrical pattern, then we can say can easily understand that poem is most probably sonnet and the poem is most probably Shakespearean sonnet. If we find iambic tetrameter, then we can say find that the poem most probably might be a lyric and written by an American poet like Robert Frost and others. In the same way, we find that trochaic tetrameter. Trochaic tetrameter is also uh, a metrical pattern that is now and then used in lyrics. Trochaic octameter is also can say a metrical pattern that is being found in a lyrics, and this is how these patterns also make us understand what could be the form of a poem given for the analysis. Rhyme and rhyme scheme. Rhyme and rhyme scheme are repetitive patterns of a sound that are being found in a poetry. Rhyme and rhyme scheme also can say make us understand what could be the can say tone and mood of a poem. The rhyme scheme somewhere indicate whether the poem is written by the poet creates happy mood or serious mood or sad mood, or it can say somewhere makes the readers to contemplate. So this is how even a rhyme rhythm, these can say things somewhere make us understand what could be the can say mood and tone of the poem. Tone means the attitude of the can say poet that is being reflected over there, and mood means kind of a psychological or emotive effect that is being found on the reader after can say reading a poem. Similarly, we find that sound and rhythm. Sound and rhythm means, the sound is something that can say evokes specific can say words in a reader's mind. Sound and rhythm somewhere indicate what could be the can say mood and tone of the poem. Similarly, sound and rhythm also can say indicate what could be the subject. The subject of the poem is one of the most important elements of poetry. It is can say something that makes us understand what is a poem about. Means what is the topic of a poem, and that can say make us to understand what could be the central idea of the poem, that is that we can say that we call as a theme of the poem, or the can say central idea of the poem. So subject of the poem somewhere makes us to understand what kind of a poem it could be, whether it is lyric, whether it is sonnet, whether it is love sonnet, whether it is devotional sonnet or ode. uh, the subjects of the can say poems include love, admiration for one's beloved, attack, God, enlightenment, salvation. This is a kind of a unending list of subjects which are being found in a poem. Speaker is another element of poetry that somewhere makes us to understand what kind of a poem it could be.